This man made a difference every day. Him and his wife made a difference in this world. And that's something he's going to be remembered for.
Today, a chapter of history closes. A journey that began with hope, dedication, and service now draws to its final moments. Former President Jimmy Carter will leave the Carter Center for the last time after lying in repose, offering a final moment of reflection.
It leaves a void, but that void is all filled with so many wonderful memories and opportunities that he provided me.
As the flags remain half-staffed, the Georgia governor, state senator, and the 39th president will be honored by the nation he served so well. In the hearts of millions, his legacy of peace, kindness, and commitment to others will forever be etched in our nation's soul.
And definitely had some tears roll down because you think some people are going to live forever even though you know they don't, but you just don't want to imagine a world that they're not in it.
As the journey comes to an end, former President Jimmy Carter's final resting place awaits in his beloved Plains, Georgia, where after a lifetime of service, he will be buried. The journey from Atlanta to Washington and to Plains is both an end and a celebration of a life dedicated to peace.
Good morning, I'm Ariana Manise.
And I'm Jonathan Martin. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
And I'm Jeff Hollinger. We bring you our special coverage this morning as former President Carter now leaving the Carter Center for the final time.
And we had extended coverage on Saturday, seeing the very beginning of these days-long celebration. We saw him leave the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center. We saw that motorcade pass by the boyhood home in Archery, Georgia, the state capitol, and now he'll be off to Washington, D.C. today.
It's been a remarkable journey, and really just to see how many people, Jeff, have shown up. I think the last count was more than 16,000 people across Georgia and beyond at the Carter Center.
You were there on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon, and I was struck by one of your reports where you were talking about the diversity of those who were streaming by the casket, that they were young, they were old, they were of all races, and really of all politics as well. And I think that's the ultimate legacy of Jimmy Carter here in Atlanta, here in Georgia. He touched so many lives, and we have talked about this quite a bit over the last few days, but he was among us, along with Mrs. Carter, that they were not a regal couple. They were of the people, for the people, and seen by the people, whether it's in restaurants, whether it was at public events or charities or sporting events as well. So the Carters have always been a part of Atlanta. I heard one writer say, as indigenous as kudzu, and certainly there is some truth in that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And within the next few hours, President Jimmy Carter will begin his final trip to Washington, D.C., where he served as the 39th President of the United States, closing out the path he forged through his service to both our state as a senator, a governor, and the nation.
Right now, we want to give you a live look up at our nation's capital, where Mr. Carter will lie in state later today. The casket is expected to arrive just after 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, today President Jimmy Carter will leave the Carter Center one last time as he heads off to the nation's capital, where he will lie in state, honored by a nation that he served with grace and with dignity.
He certainly did, and as the roads are pretty quiet right now with all the snow out there, we pay tribute to a man whose legacy of peace and service will endure for generations.
And today is full with a list of events as the president moves from the Carter Center to the nation's capital, and we take a look at the public visitation of President Carter lying in repose. Ended this morning at 7 o'clock, and then at 11 a.m., about 2 hours from now, there will be a ceremony as President Carter departs the Carter Center. At 12 p.m., President Carter will receive a 21-gun salute as he leaves from Robins Air Reserve Base to fly on to Washington, D.C. The casket is set to arrive at 4 p.m. at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda to lie in state. And this will be followed by remarks by Vice President Harris, U.S. Speaker Johnson, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune at 4:30. Then mourners will be able to pay their respects inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, and that will all commence at about 6 p.m.
All right, so a lot of the services moving now to Washington, D.C. Right now, we want to bring in 11 Alive anchor Cheryl Preheim, who is live in D.C. inside the Capitol Rotunda, where we will see some of those folks coming by today. Cheryl.
Yeah, we expect a lot of people will want to be part of those final goodbyes here in Washington, D.C., as we saw 23,000 plus people go through the Carter Center. The snowstorm making a big impact here on the city in terms of logistics, delaying the start of the funeral events here in Washington, D.C. today. But the best news perhaps is what's happening right now outside the U.S. Capitol. We want to show you the blue skies and the sunshine that now is illuminating the Capitol grounds. This is a very different view than we saw just 8 or 10 hours ago. Heavy snowfall overnight. It snowed all day yesterday, so these blue skies will be a gorgeous backdrop for what will be a meaningful and significant day here. There are hundreds and hundreds of flags around the U.S. Capitol grounds, all at half-staff, of course, to honor the 39th President of the United States. Really a striking scene with all the snow flying over the last 24 hours. There's a row of state flags that has been lowered as well, and we took quick note, of course, of the Georgia state flag there. Significant, as Jimmy Carter is the only president from the state of Georgia, and we certainly feel the love from Georgia here to Washington, D.C. as we start this next phase of remembrance. For anyone who is traveling to the city, you'll see an incredible amount of security. There are fences all around the U.S. Capitol grounds, both for what's happening today, the start of the funeral services, but also in anticipation of the inauguration on the 20th. Obviously, a huge police presence yesterday, marking year number 4 since the deadly Capitol riots here as the votes were being certified for the election. So many significant events converging here on the city all at once, but all of the, I think, energy at the moment, of course, is as we turn towards honoring Jimmy Carter in a city that he called home just for 4 years, but was really a leaping off point for all the years to follow, all the humanitarian work, the presidential library being built in Atlanta, and good deeds from every corner of the state of Georgia to pockets all over the world, some of the most remote places. Some significant things to look for today as you're watching the coverage. After the Air Force plane designated Special Air Mission 39 lands carrying Mr. Carter's casket, there'll be an 11-mile journey to the United States Naval Monument and Memorial. Significant, of course, because of President Carter's service in the military. He worked on nuclear submarines, was a naval officer there as well. And then it will make its way towards the Capitol. But take special note of what happens between the Naval Memorial and the Capitol on Pennsylvania Avenue. Mr. Carter, before his passing, was very clear that this is what he wanted to happen, because he was the one that pushed through the construction of the U.S. Naval Memorial Visitor Center and the Visitor Center for the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, where millions of people have stopped by in the decades to come. And it's also a nod to a surprising moment that he and Rosalynn Carter made on Inauguration Day. Take a look at this video from 1977 as President Carter was sworn in as the 39th president, and then they were supposed to go by motorcade with the Secret Service inside the car, but they surprised everyone, got out of the car, even though Secret Service told them not to. They held hands as the First Lady wore that bright green pea coat down Pennsylvania Avenue. That was a very calculated move. They said they wanted to be seen as down to earth, as accessible. That had never been done in history on Inauguration Day. Worth noting, because now we're very used to and expect a president and first lady to get out of the motorcade at some point and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue and wave to onlookers on Inauguration Day. But the Carters made that possible by making history on that day in 1977. Today in Washington, D.C., it will be a very special and touching tribute as the Carters family will walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, even on a cold and snowy day here in Washington, D.C., to kind of go through those steps one more time in honor of President Carter as we say goodbye. Again, as Jeff mentioned, the public will have a chance to come and pay their final respects to say say thank you at the Capitol Rotunda later this evening, and then on Thursday will be the funeral services at the National Cathedral. Jeff and Jonathan and Ariana, I have to tell you, I was so happy to see the sun come out and the blue skies over the Capitol. I know there's a lot of snow to navigate, but glad to see that be the backdrop of what will be such a meaningful day. I know there might be some people trying to get into town. There may be some delays, but hopefully the delay of some of these ceremonies will mean that no one will miss out on the opportunity to be part of this day.
I was really struck by the sunshine that was part of Inauguration Day in 1977 when the Carters stepped out of the car, which was, at that time, if you listen to Walter Cronkite and some of the other anchors of that era in network television, it was a revolutionary act. It was something that had never been seen before because, you know, the regal demeanor of Gerald Ford, who followed Richard Nixon, and before that, Lyndon Johnson, who always remained in that car and always remained according to protocol. But the Carters changed all of that. The idea for them to walk outside of the limousine came from President Carter's son, Chip. It was his idea that they get out, and both of the Carters liked that idea, and the rest, as they say, is history, because it is one of those indelible images from 1977 and from the Carter presidency of seeing them out, seeing them wave, seeing them stop by. There's a famous moment with Willard Scott from the NBC Today show, who's the great legendary late weatherman from Washington, D.C., who the Carters came over and embraced, and that had never been seen before.
Yeah.